Well, good to have you with us in this edition of the Topical Discussion. My name is Simon Kagwanjala. It's a Monday, and we kickstart it with politics. There's a lot happening. The country is at what you'd call a critical moment in the politics of the country as we head to 2026. For starters, is it anything really to warm up to? You don't see any kind of activity within the camps, but what's happening on the landscape is totally different, and it's exactly what we'll be digesting with Mr. Joseph Kabuleta, the president of the National Economic Empowerment Dialogue Party, NED. Well, he joins us this morning to make sense or to share with us his perspective on the state of affairs. A very good morning. Good to see you, Mr. President.
Good morning. Good to see you too. I would love to mention the last time I saw you, but looks like it got you in trouble, so I will not. No problem.
We're still here. We're still here.
Okay.
Well, hot on the heels now is the big story on the parliamentary sittings, as Parliament now moots the idea of rotating, going regional. The opposition, part of the opposition has come out to oppose the whole idea. What do you make of this plan?
I think it's redundant. First of all, where have they benchmarked something like that happening anywhere across the world? Secondly, they've just built a very wonderful facility in Parliament, and you've heard people saying how they wanted there to be a gym and a resting place and all that. So somehow you've created something so comfortable, and then you want to go across the country. But there is a reason why they want to do it, and there's something that is going to be achieved while they are in those up-country deliberations. And you spoke in your introduction about 2026, and if the current government has its way, it's going to be a totally different year from what we are used to, what we've been used to since 1996 and every 5 years thereafter. Because I know for a fact that Mao is planning to introduce a discussion where the president is going to be elected by Parliament rather than through universal adult suffrage. That should have happened actually about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Is this in the corridors, or you have a document?
It is going to happen. You just wait and see. It is going to happen. Actually, it was supposed to happen about 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's about timing. What is the best timing for him to introduce it? And it is going to be introduced at some stage soon. I can't see it taking more than a month before it happens. And the discussion is going to be hot, and it's going to be very heated. And who knows how people, perhaps within town, will react to that. So you never know. Maybe that's one of them. But it is going to be out there. And it is not going to be the parliamentary system that you're used to. Of parliamentary system, you know what it is, the way it is in countries like UK, South Africa, and so on, where the party with the biggest number of MPs has the leader of government. It's not going to be like that. It is going to be Parliament actually electing a president and taking away universal adult suffrage. That is the proposal, and it's going to be tabled before Parliament any time now. So I don't know whether it's coincidental that now suddenly Parliament wants to go and make all these discussions up country, and where perhaps people will be a bit starstruck. But the reality is, what's the thinking behind it?
Okay, the rationale, according to Parliament, is to connect with the communities that the legislators serve and to get a real grasp of the issues on the ground.
That is why you have a member of Parliament coming from all those places, coming to Parliament to present the issues of his constituency to Parliament. Isn't that what it's all about? So there is no place they are going to take Parliament.
The argument of taking Parliament to the people, doesn't it really count in this case?
Like, there is no taking Parliament. Parliament is not government. Parliament is discussion of laws. Now, Parliament always gets to the people through the laws that they enact. That's how they get to the people, not through going there and posturing and being there and somehow people see that, you know, parliamentary sitting in a village or something like that. The truth is there is absolutely no rationale to justify it, none whatsoever.
What's notable is that the opposition looks rather divided on the matter, with some groups, some legislators preferring to go for the sitting, while the group that is led by the leader of opposition is stuck, or rather is firm against.
There is going to be some money given for per diem and so on. So maybe that explains so many things for the MPs to go in all those places.
Yeah, but generally speaking, should the country now focus on the money that will be spent in these regional sittings, or the issues that will be discussed? What is on the agenda?
The issues
you should be curious.
The issues that will be discussed can be discussed in Kampala in the parliamentary building, which was built for that purpose. There is no specific issue that in any case is going to be discussed somewhere else on a different locality that cannot be discussed here, and perhaps is going to be discussed in a locality more efficiently than would be discussed here. There is none. There is no justification whatsoever for that. But of course, it's part of a posturing process, you know, make Parliament look like they are all that. So taking Parliament to the people. Parliament is always going to the people through the laws they enact.
And the people will be cashing it in the different areas?
Well, that would be like, let's say, some silver lining. But then, still that doesn't bring a justification for it. Because it's not like they are going on a fact-finding tour. Let's go and find out what's happening here. No, they are actually going to discuss. If they were going on a fact-finding mission to go and find what's happening in this place, and then they come and discuss it, in the parliamentary building, which was built for that purpose, that would be different. But the honest truth, I don't see any justification whatsoever. Okay,
do you see the opposition being realistic in opposing this idea at the last minute, yet the budget for the activity was already passed?
You asked me what I thought about it, and I told you, now the budget has been passed, and my opinion is probably not going to change anything. It's going to go ahead.
So the opposition is up in arms. Is it misguided?
No, it's not misguided. They have a point. There is no point in the parliament going up country. Like parliament, I mean, we have to get back to the basics. What is the purpose of parliament? And which of those purposes is fulfilled best when they're in a locality somewhere? None whatsoever. There is no way you can convince me that there is any rationale behind it, apart from posturing.
Well, very interesting. There's also an issue that is still lacking in many ways, in many outlets, the Chitezi post-tragedy issue. How do you analyze the way it's been handled? Chitezi from the day the landfill collapsed on people, and the reaction thereafter.
No, it's been horrible, but nothing short of what we'd expect, considering, you know, the way our country is arranged, though it's arranged, because there's almost like a caste system between the haves and have-nots. So when something happens amidst people of a certain caliber, it doesn't it doesn't shake the whole country as it should. And that's a tragedy. But first of all, the story that came out of Chitezi has not been fully told. And that is that there was an explosion and somebody was involved in that explosion. It wasn't a natural incident of a landfill being overused and overstretched and then just collapsing. There was something more to that. All the people who survived have talked about you know, some kind of explosion. And nobody has actually gone into the depth of that. Number two, we have had completely, the issues we have in regard to telling the numbers of people who died there. Because you can't have a scenario where there are in excess of 100 households and you're giving a number of 30 or something like that, dead people. Of course, you count those who are, whose bodies you found. So that's
So what's not adding up so far, and what's adding up?
No, of course, what they should be telling us is how many people are missing, how many people are expected to be found perhaps dead now, because now it can't be, rescuing, it has to be recovery. So you say, considering what was here and the information that you get from survivors and so on, how many people are in your household, how many households and so on. Now, they should have gleaned that information from survivors to find out exactly how many people do we expect to have been under there, okay? Mm-hmm. Then perhaps we say that Kableta, according to reports we're having, you're supposed to have been under. Are you anywhere in the country? No, I'm around. Sorry, I had left. Then we say, okay, now you're not part of the people we're expecting to recover, and so on, so that we can have some definite number of people we're expecting to get out of there. But because, of course, these are not people of, of means. These are, the whole, especially from the leaders, the whole overlook has been, yeah, okay, it was a tragedy, it happened, like they've been buried, let's just move on. And that's really, really sad. Okay. Because we can't even tell how many people there were, how many people were under
To what extent does Chitezi depict the true state of affairs of the country?
It does. It does. First of all, we once had the Minister of Disaster Preparedness.
There is one.
And once had...
No, there is one.
Okay, I'm talking about effectively. There is one. Now, how prepared do you think they would be for a disaster like that? Okay, Chitezi was one that perhaps nobody expected. But there have been others that people expect, the landslides and so on, which happen every time there's heavy rain. And so, but there's still no preparedness for it. And we're a state of garbage, to be honest, because the dysfunctionality of everything in this country means that Chitezi was just an anecdote of what you would expect from a country like ours. Everything about Chitezi, the fact that there was an explosion, which everybody is talking about, except on official platforms, the fact that the rubbish came and buried people, and the fact that we have absolutely no idea how many people we are trying to recover from, from the rubble of the rubbish. No, not even an estimate. We're just counting dead bodies that are being removed. There's no estimate and nothing like that. Now, you see even in buildings, for instance, like this, they say there is a fire assembly point. When there is a fire, everyone who comes out, run and assemble here. Don't go, stay here, so that we can account for how many people we expect to have been in the building and how many we have at the fire assembly point. That's the whole purpose of it. So then we know that these ones have escaped the fire, then we're expecting to find this number of people trapped somewhere within the building based on that. Now, this is simple things, because these households, the people who survived know the people, the houses around their neighborhood. They know it. If they had been spoken to properly, and they had given the estimates, we could have something. Maybe we're expecting 100 people. Maybe we're expecting 150 people.
Government reached out with 5 million as condolences to the bereaved families for every lost case. Do you think this is an appropriate response?
I don't know. For those people, of course, who suffered the tragedy, they could use the 5 million. So I don't want to speak perhaps from my vantage point and so on. But the issue is that you could see that government was in a hurry to throw money at the problem, rather than first of all finding out how could this have happened. Of course, we had been advised to stop using that landfill a long time ago. How could this have happened? How can we avoid it happening again? Okay, even as they go ahead and give people money, but you see, they do that all the time. And sometimes they do it in a very disrespectful way. I remember when, during the 2021 elections, people were shot, women who were going, during the riots in Kampala. And innocent people were shot, some of whom were in taxis and so on. And the president, what would be apology, comes up and say, okay, those who were killed, come and get 5 million shillings. Like, that is so disrespectful. Very disrespectful. You kill a teenager and say, come and get 5 million shillings. Is that the going rate for life in Uganda? Like, at least first, okay, maybe the family could use the 5 million to go and do the burial arrangements. But first come and address the issue. Why are soldiers shooting people in taxis? And first at least tell us that this was a mistake, it should never have happened. Our soldiers have not been thus commanded to kill people who are innocent, and so on and so forth. Then after all that is done, then you say, okay, now, since somebody has died and we can't, remedy that, let's give you something, But now, how many people died? Let's give you money. I mean, like, what's the going rate for life in Uganda?
Okay, when you look at Chitezi politically, does it raise any undertones? Because you've now talked about disaster response, disaster planning and management. But politically, does it have any undertones that the country ought to look at?
It should have, but unfortunately, I do not think that by the time we get in the thick of the political season, that Chitezi will be an issue. Now, that's the thing about Uganda, and it's a bit sad, but that's the reality.
We move on.
We move on. We move on even when we should not be moving on. And the things from which, actually, we linger so long around things that we should be moving on from. And then we move on from things we should actually be digesting exhaustively before we actually get to the point of moving on. How do we deal with the rubbish problem in the city? How do we ensure that nothing of the like happens? Because I was hearing even people in Jinja saying that they are scared they might be next after Chitezi. And there's been a rubbish problem in this city for a very, very long time. And there's been a lot of talk of using some kind of, technology to turn the rubbish into power and so on. But as with everything else, it has just been, lip service. Nothing has been done about. But we can actually, there are people who are actually doing that. And I'm talking about people around us. I'm not talking about people somewhere.
For how long should the country dwell on the tragedy? I thought since it is a country that moves on, we can put Chitezi behind us, but pick lessons though.
We should dwell on the tragedy.
Or it's about time to seek accountability.
You see, you have to look at societies and see how long do they dwell on tragedies, especially in lieu of the fact that they try to make sure they never happen again. Okay? And I'll give you one which, for instance, happened in the UK in a football pitch. You remember the Hillsborough disaster. And they came up with laws, no standing, fans. Everyone has to be seated, seats are numbered and so on, to ensure something of the like does not happen again. But every year they are doing a memorial. And that memorial is also there to remind the people that we shall never let this happen again. Okay? Now, the Israelis say never again after what happened in the Second World War. They say we were comfortably belonging to these countries. Okay, we are living comfortably as Germans, as Polish, as so on. And then they turned against us and started killing us. And we were powerless. So now we went and started our own state. Now never again. And they mean it. We shall never be vulnerable like that again. You see? Now those are serious people. You see? Now we should be in position to say we shall never have people buried by rubbish again. Now, how can we ensure that? By actually getting to the real bottom of how did this happen? What careless mistakes were made? Who could have made a decision separately? How do we bring that person to book? And things like that.
The president ordered an inquiry through the office of the IGG. Are you hopeful that it will yield into anything?
Now, first of all, the IGG, why IGG? Because that's a KCCA thing, and the people in the Kampala city. I'm not so sure IGG would be the best office, but then it's going to be one of many inquiries which he orders. I could run off about 10 right now, which have yielded nothing. So I'm not too hopeful. It's just a way. It's a decent way of telling people, let's move on. Yeah, you can't go, Chitezi, yeah, there is a inquiry going on. So wait for the findings. Chitezi, there is an inquiry going on.
Yeah, but for starters, who is liable for the mess in Chitezi?
That's what we should be finding out. We can't know for sure.
In your opinion, where would you start from? If you are to connect...
From KCCA. That's where I would start from KCCA. Now, from KCCA, you can narrow it down to who should have been seeing that this is a disaster waiting to happen.
Why would you exonerate the central government at the top?
I'm not so sure the central government, I'm not exonerating it, but dealing with rubbish, like...
this is a capital city.
Yes, it is a capital city, and it has an authority, okay? So a capital city authority is supposed to be in charge of everything within the capital city, isn't it?
Yes.
The word authority means that they're in total control. So that's where I would start.
Practically, are they?
Well, in law they are. So that's where I would start. KCCA. If it was KCC previously, then maybe we would stretch, you know, the search for culpable people. But since it is KCCA, now we have to stick there because it's an authority and they should be in control of all those things.
Yeah, but KCC has also come out to say that on several occasions they have floated plans to upgrade Chitezi, and government has treated them with deaf ears.
Maybe then we can stretch after going through KCC and they tell us that, and they should tell us what plans they are and who it is they approached and why they think that should have been done. You know, my point is this: we can try to look for who is culpable, and we should look for who is culpable. Sometimes not even so much as to, just for the purpose of maybe bringing them to book or punishing them or what, but just to make sure nothing like that ever happens again. Because even if you write it off as a mistake, are we sure we are not going to have such a mistake again?
How do we connect the Chitezi story to the way Kampala looks at the moment? The state of Kampala.
Well, first of all, Kampala, as you said, there is supposed to be an authority, but there is a lot of forces at play. First of all, political forces. And I remember when there was a huge, you know, hullabaloo about the potholes in the city. And, you know, a lot of this thing and so on, potholes in the city, and which of course are still there. And guess who came out posturing as he's going to solve the problem? Muhoozi. Now you say, where does Muhoozi, an army man, come into the city? You say, this country is totally confused, by the way. Totally confused, because that's the last person we want there. There are people who should have come, at least if there is posturing, let it be done by other people. But I was seeing him in the office of, you know, the KCCA ED, you know, posturing and so on. And to be honest, it was very disgusting because I knew nothing was going to happen. And guess what has happened? Nothing. And that is going to be an object of somebody else posturing, perhaps even he himself, again, and still nothing is going to happen. And the truth is that our leadership can only be as good as the people who hold it accountable.
So has Kampala become a stage of posturers?
Simon, the honest truth is, you look at Kampala City. Look at Kampala City. The other time, and sometimes you avoid some places deliberately, just to keep yourself sane. But the other time I was driving around a visitor from Nairobi. Not London or New York, Nairobi. And I had to drive them through certain places and so on. And I've never been so ashamed because the person looks and says, is this a city? Are you actually in a city? And this is how it looks like. And it is a city. It is our city. And this is how it looks like. And somehow it reflects on you as a person. Even if you're trying to, you know, put on a suit and look all that, the city reflects on you. Now imagine you hosted some media people from, you know, of your caliber from somewhere, and, you know, you have to drive them through the roads. You have to, you would hope almost that you could fly to NBS and spare them the site that they are going to run into. But you can't. You have to go through those roads, and somehow they don't look at KCCA. They don't know about that. They look at you and say, what kind of human beings are you that let a city deteriorate to this point where you cannot even feel a pothole? Not even a pothole. Where you're doing the Luzira Road for 1 year and excess, okay? Doing the drainages, and the drainages are taking a year to accomplish. The people who are working on the road work like civil servants. They are there at 9 and leave at 4:30. Okay? And yet people elsewhere have lights at night to make sure they work through the night to minimize the time it takes to do the road for the purpose of minimizing, of course, inconveniences.
Right.
But now, road works here in Uganda, road workers work like civil servants. Okay? In the evening, they are somewhere drinking cappuccino and something. And it's sad because you've taken that road of Luzira. How long has it taken?
Forever.
Like, it should have been done already. Okay, we know you're constructing a road. We know it's an ugly business. We know, I know a bit of construction of roads. I did a bit of civil engineering. It's an ugly process. But it can be shortened. You don't have to take in excess over here just doing a road, just doing the drainages of a road. But anyway, that's our city. And
Well, still moving on to another big issue that is trending. We had 2 diplomats expelled last week, one from Dubai, one from UAE, who was accused of turning an embassy premises into a casino, and the other one accused of acting in a very unbecoming manner in Canada. What do you make of this? What's your take?
no, there's nothing surprising about it because the one thing that this government has totally belittled, completely belittled, is diplomacy. Because I think the last I checked, we had, I think, about 36 embassies and so on. And some of the embassies were in countries that I was feeling we don't necessarily have big business with. And then, actually, what I thought was the peak of belittling diplomacy is when, you remember that guy who was in charge of what security organ, Kaka? You remember Kaka?
ISO.
He was in charge of ISO. And then he left, then they said they are making him an ambassador. And I couldn't stop laughing. And I said, what does he know about diplomacy? The man knows about torturing and squeezing people's nuts and so on. Like, he doesn't know anything about diplomacy, and you're making him an ambassador. And now that is true of other ambassadors. There are so many others who are just failed soldiers, failed politicians, and so on. And actually, this is a profession. It is a profession, and you're belittling it because there are people who actually are studied in that profession, diplomacy, and they could be of some use to us, and they are not there. Now, there is no way somebody who has the slightest credentials of diplomacy can do what that lady in Canada did. Acheng. Like, you can't. You've met them, some of them.
So do we blame the envoys or the appointing authority?
We start with the appointing authority, because now that is going to be because those people, first of all, are sent to embassies. How much funding is given to them? They're expected to actually fund their own activities for the most part while they are there. And I've met so many people who work in those foreign missions, and it is not a good thing. So in the process of trying to fund their own missions, they do a lot of things, like the one in UAE. They do so many things which they should not be doing. Now, I said here sometime during campaign, I said that there are different ways you can handle this. For instance, look at which countries we have the most business with. And those should be the ones that, and embassies, since we don't have so many of them, I don't think we have any more than 40 of them. The last I checked, there were 36. And embassies are supposed to be in places where they can be justified by the business they bring. For instance, if you are the ambassador in Canada, how many tourists do we have in Uganda coming from Canada? How much business do we have coming from Canada? What is earned as a country from Canada to justify, number one, your mission, and to justify yourself being there? Now, if you do not justify yourself through money, then what's the purpose of us having an embassy there if there is no justification for it? Now, if we actually made missions on that basis, and now if I appointed Kagwanjala, I wouldn't appoint you though, as
I don't merit?
No, you are not a diplomat. You're not a diplomat. Usually, I would appoint diplomats. Now, the thing is, if I appointed you in a place, you would have to show me what business Uganda is getting from that place. First of all, to merit the budget that is going to come with that embassy, and secondly, to merit yourself being there. And if that does not add up, if you don't at least break even, I call you back to Kampala. and appoint you somewhere else. So that we have embassies which are not idle, redundant.
So,
because those
so
people
these two embarrassments give us a peek into the reality about diplomacy.
Those people are redundant. They are redundant. They are, okay, UAE, we have a lot of business there and so on, and maybe there are other issues. But how funded are those embassies? How much does that ambassador have to do to keep himself alive, afloat? And I've seen this so many times. Almost all the people who are in foreign missions are doing some sort of business to survive. To survive. Because what's the budget of foreign affairs? And how does that spread across the embassies that we have? It's a very miserly, scenario. So the one who was trying to earn a living, however indecently, perhaps might be less of the transgressor than the one who went on the street and started shouting. And now that was really embarrassing, because you don't have to do that. Now the other one can argue, I had to do this.
There is a sense that in this case, it's the opposition that took the day. When she faced off with the opposition, Canada was alerted, and they felt that was pretty undiplomatic. Should the opposition celebrate the expulsion of Acheng?
They will do that because of the way she behaved herself. You've seen the videos. It was a confrontation. And there is no way the opposition is not going to celebrate, because that's a victory for them. Because they were on the streets trying to, demonstrate what's happening in Uganda and so on. She shouldn't have put her face there. Now, when she goes there and starts arguing with them and starts exchanging words with them, obviously they are going to celebrate when she's chased away by Canada. And now for them, that's a victory. When you're in opposition politics, especially in a country like Uganda, where you have very little going for you, sometimes you celebrate things that are hollow victories. But because you're looking for something to celebrate, something small, some country sanctioned, speaker, then you celebrate, you see. But then you ask yourself, how does that lead you close to taking power?
Precisely.
And maybe,
so what?
No, the point is that it might not be leading you to take power, but you're so squeezed. You are in a position of total disadvantage. So any slight apparent victory appears like a victory, and then you'll claim, you're the one who made it happen and so on. And
is it Uganda that is embarrassed, or it's the NRM that is embarrassed?
Oh man, those two have been so intertwined that now it's they are like Siamese twins. You cannot separate them. They are conjoined. That's the honest truth. That's why even you find so many Ugandans hating things to do with Uganda, because NRM has personalized it. And now that is the travesty. And they have done it in so many ways. So many ways. Remember when we were celebrating 50 years of independence? And I remember it was supposed to be a big national thing, 50 years of independence, and that I think was 2012. And somehow NRM have to write their rubbish into it. So they said 50 years of independence, but I don't know how many of stability. And I'm thinking, like, NRM, can't you just let Uganda celebrate independence without your rubbish? Because you're fleeting, you're temporary, you're going to be gone very soon. Whereas Uganda as a nation is going to be around. Now, but you see, NRM has tried to write itself. Now look at the Heroes Day and all the heroes. All the heroes are those who are helping Museveni destroy the constitution and stay in power. Are those real heroes? Now look elsewhere at the people, for instance, in other countries. Look at the kind of people whom the British knight. The people who went and expanded the British Empire, Sir Samuel Baker and so on. You come to Uganda and you present to the British Empire a whole protectorate called Uganda. And you're knighted and you are buried in Westminster Abbey because you've expanded, the riches of your empire and so on. Now, those are the people. Now, for them, they will actually honor people who have done something for the country, not for one particular leader who is here today and going to go tomorrow. So they will put Katonga medals, whatever. And all that is, when Museveni is gone, those will not be considered real heroes. And yet, actually, as a country, we have real heroes. And until we learn how to celebrate heroes, real celebrate heroes, the way those people celebrate their heroes, nobody is going to go and put their neck out there or put themselves in danger to be a hero when there is no reward to it.
Well, as we take a very short break, for starters, there is another election on the horizon. 2026 is beckoning. And do we see Kabuleta on the ballot?
Most definitely. Most definitely. Why do you think I'm doing this? Not only do you see me on the ballot, you see me on the podium being sworn in.
We'll take a break. Good morning. Well, we're still dissecting politics and a lot of things that are playing out on the landscape and shaping the political conversations with Mr. Joseph Kabuleta, the president of National Economic Empowerment Dialogue, the NED party. Well, as we look up to 2026, you've already indicated that you will be vying, but at the same time, you initially said that there is a scheme to change the pattern of voting. How will you fit in the mix? And two, what's your assessment of the opposition, where there is a sense of survival now, a bit of disjointedness, and a bit of disarray?
In honest truth, the opposition is in total disarray right now. There is very little that is happening that you think is going to crescendo into something that would even give people hope that we are getting rid of.
Traditionally, by now, there would be some tempo,
something, some climbing of a hill that you perhaps it's going to end somewhere, and perhaps near or far, but there is not anything. But then they also, a year is a long time in politics. Okay, now by this time next year, anything could have changed, and it will have changed. That's the truth. Now, in regard to
what would change? What do you envisage to change?
Number one, a move, some kind of wave can come up within that time, and it will come up, I believe. Who will lead the wave and what it will look like is something to be, perhaps waited upon. But there's going to be something. There's going to be a wave of some sort. And because usually people everywhere, all political players at this time start becoming jittery and anxious. They want to see what is happening, what's moving. And at some stage, they are going to actually have to merge themselves somewhere to make something move. So it will move. The question is, how is it going to look? Now, in regard to what you said, or rather, what I said about the National Assembly and how there's a proposal that they will be the ones electing the president. Of course, the reason all this is coming up in two reasons. First of all, the president is wary, and elections drain him a lot, going across the country, trying to, even the last election, which he made scientific, which was a proper gimmick, used COVID as an example to destroy the vibrancy of the campaign. It took a lot out of him, It took a lot out of him. There was talk of, him being, not well and all that. And then he'd come back and do push-ups to show everybody he's well and so on. But it really drained him a lot. And now this is 5 years later. It will be 5 years later. He's going to be 5 years older. So I think he's not looking forward to going through the same process. Perhaps that's why he wants something that's going to be done through Parliament. That would be a storm. I mean, just a walk-through, a knife through butter for him.
Do you imagine anyone can put up a stiff opposition against this plot?
At this moment, I don't imagine it. First of all, because these people are so clever. They first of all turned the whole country against Parliament right now as it is. So people have very little faith in Parliament. There's been a lot of talk of Parliament and the corruption that is in there, which is there. But Parliament is not the capital of corruption in the country. It is the executive. It's the executive.
Just a second. You want to suggest that the campaign against Parliament is engineered by this?
Very well engineered. and embraced by people who want to see things differently. All the anti-corruption crusaders, all of them very well-meaning and so on. But there is something about it that I found very, very suspicious when I saw certain people appearing to support it. Key among them, the president, appearing even to take, control of it, take ownership of it. Then it became it became extremely suspicious. But then, now, Parliament is not at a good place right now in terms of people's perceptions, because all the issues of, their apparent corruption have been highlighted. Some of them very glaring, some of them very embarrassing, and so on, and by very well-meaning journalists, and so on. And then also, there were those people.
Oh, the state hijacked it.
The state hijacked it, and let me tell you something, Kagwa. I want you to look back at all the times Museveni has come out to fight corruption. There is something else he's fighting. For instance, at the peak, I think, if I remember well, I can be corrected, at the peak of, when there was a lot of tension from Walk to Work in 2011, Museveni came up with a fight against corruption. Then the last time he worked against corruption, there was a lot of issues of human rights. People were being kidnapped and so on. Then he goes to fight corruption. It's always a side gig, not a side gig. It's always a diversion for him. Every time he comes, we have to fight corruption. We defeated Obote, we defeated what we are going to defeat corruption. That's his talk, and you know what he's doing. But the truth is, that's not how it works. The way it works is, and I know this for a fact, that in 2006, when Besigye apparently won that election, according to Tinyefunza or Sejusa, won that election, Museveni realized that the opposition is very strong. So he decided to spend a lot of money in opposition. And there is a lot of money in opposition. And then NRM people were left with corruption to pay themselves. So much of the money from the state goes to opposition. Now the people of the ruling party pay themselves through corruption. That is an unwritten rule somewhere. Okay? So that's how it works. So now that's why you see even this, what you're talking about, the opposition being decimated. It is by design. And all these parties splitting and so on, this one going the other side, and it's all money. And by design, and it's where he concentrates, because he cannot, at the time he thought he could concentrate just on building NRM. But he realized as long as somebody is building comfortably this side, eventually they will topple him. So now he decides to destroy this side, the other one will build itself. Since he had done a good job building it. So now, all this talk about fighting corruption. Now, every time I hear Museveni talking about fighting corruption, I try to find out what is he masking, what is he hiding from, what is the real issue that he doesn't want people to actually focus on. Now, Parliament is in a bad place. Then there were these MPs who were taken to prison and taken all over because of asking Uganda Human Rights Commission for some kickback in order to give them money. And they presented it there. They were actually asking for kickbacks, even there were recordings and so on. But the reality is that is normal Parliament business. Normal Parliament business.
Of kickbacks?
Normal Parliament business. If they were to dig deeper and stretch out that, that net, it would catch so many other people. And they know it. But it only quotes these few as a sample. Now, the others know that if they actually spread this, it would come to my doorstep. That's a good time to introduce the bill where Parliament votes the president. Because Kagwanjala, who would stand up and say, no, that's not right, knows very well that he asked for a kickback some time ago, and his fellow kickbackers are in prison, and for him he has been spared.
So the MPs are now ransomed?
The timing is perfect. That's why I'm telling you it's going to happen very soon. The timing is perfect, absolutely perfect.
So would this include legislators from the opposition?
Or, first of all, the legislators from the opposition. Do you know what that does to Parliament? The fact that they are going to elect the president. That makes them very important. That means that their budget, every time from now is going to be increased tremendously. That means they are going to have a lot more money, and that means they are going to have a lot more power, and it is as beneficial to them as it is to the executive.
Okay, but the malaise within the opposition, save for Honorable Kyagulanyi, who's already come out to declare that he will be standing in 2026, there seems to be a lot of inertia.
There is inertia, and of course you'd expect him to stand, because why wouldn't he stand? His party is the biggest opposition party right now. But the thing is, that him standing and what happens in the Augusta House are totally different things. And now I am telling you, if that, not if, when that bill is introduced in Parliament, it is going to breeze through, absolutely breeze through. There's not going to be an opposition. The
expectation of a two-horse race, a bitter race, is far-fetched. To be honest, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But if Museveni has his way, because I was telling you, first of all, it eases the pressure he has to go through in elections. But secondly, if he's going to install his son as he wants, there is no way his son is going to be elected by universal adult suffrage. That is not going to happen. They tried to market him with the Balaam and what, spending a lot of money, and it just didn't take off. It just didn't take off. So he had to come up with something different if he was going to actually accomplish. Mr. Kabuleta, talking about the son, lately social media has been awash with their banter with the son-in-law. Should the country be swayed into the bitterness or the palace fight that is happening?
In my opinion, this is supposed to be completely irrelevant to us as a people. But since they have decided to fight, we shall sit back and watch. Who doesn't want a good fight? So we are going to sit back and get some popcorn and watch, because these are two privileged, entitled people. And what they are fighting about is who should be more entitled.
But I thought this reveals an ongoing succession battle.
It does, but the point is that the succession is not going to be done by Museveni. That's where those people get it wrong. None of Rwabogo or Muhoozi are electable in Uganda. None of them can even win an LC1 election. They cannot, where the ground is level. You see, so there should not be an issue for us. Can Rwabogo win an election anywhere?
Yeah, but even the imagination that the ground is level is a fallacy.
It will not be a fallacy when the old man is gone. That's the only advantage they have. They don't have any fault. When the old man is gone, they are going to be like Kabuleta and Kagwanjala. Okay? Now, if they think they are going to inherit all those years of what their father-in-law has built, they are kidding themselves. That's not how it works. Okay? Because Museveni has built his own, his own traction and his own what and so on, built his system, and he is in that place because he has worked hard for it. Anybody who gets there is going to have to work hard for it.
But in your judgment, who is taking the day so far?
Between who?
MK and Rwabogo.
To me, it is absolutely irrelevant. It's like asking me who is winning between a lion and a bear. When I'm watching from a cage, when there is a cage in between them and I'm watching this other side taking a cup of coffee. Irrelevant, totally irrelevant. None of those people is going to rule this country. The person who is going to rule this country is going to have to convince the people of this country to vote for them. None of those two people have the ability to even win an LC1 election. None of them. Not even all the others. So it is completely irrelevant. Let them tear themselves to pieces. Let them do whatever it is they want. As far as Ugandans are concerned, as far as I am concerned, and Ugandans.
How come the country seems concerned?
No, the country is not concerned. The country is just enjoying it. Because when two privileged people and entitled who have had everything they want for 40 years, okay, or thereabout, and can pick this, pick the other one goes and picks $10 million to convince Ugandans to drink coffee, the other one goes and does what, and people like that. This one is breezing through the ranks and so on. When such people, and there is nothing you can do as a Ugandan this other side, Okay? Just like you cannot enter the cage to fight a lion, but you can enjoy when two lions are fighting each other. Okay? Now, if you get there, we know how it is going to end. But as long as you're this side and they are fighting each other, reminds me of a joke of somebody asking a lion and a bear, which would you rather attack you? Then the other one said, I would rather the lion attacks the bear. Now, this is exactly what we are in right now. The lion and the bear fight. I'm totally disinterested in what they have to say. They are inconsequential. They are soon going to be totally inconsequential, both of them. Both of them.
Okay, so on one side, we have the two princes fighting the other side. Then on the other side, we have the opposition, which is at loggerheads, which is going for each other's necks. Today we have the new FDC versus the old FDC. We have the Mpuga versus Nup faction. Is that the defining moment of politics today?
At least these ones are fighting for people. I was at the launch of the FDC Katonga because I was invited and I was there and I was seeing representation from all across the country. Okay? And, you know, they...
Do you think that's a legit force to watch?
It will be at some stage. It will be because they are building. And first of all, they had to sort their issues within FDC. And then when they finish, who knows what they will be. They can build on, and because they are planning, I think, to start something different and dissolve the old one. So they can be, anybody can be anything as it is right now. But the truth is, it is going to be a negotiated presidency among all sorts of different forces. So the FDC have their group. Both factions have their group. Each one of these parties, NUP and so on, all of them have their group. So there's going to be a negotiated settlement. And that's how it has always been.
I think, Mr. Kabuleta, you were support of the dissenting forces. You were at Mpuga's faction, you were at Katonga.
I was where I was invited. Mpuga invited me, and I went there because I've been following him, and he's a dignified politician, and I loved his tenure as leader of opposition. So I went there. Now, FDC Katonga, I was invited by
If Najja Nkum invited you, would you still attend?
They haven't invited me, but I was invited by Semuju Nganda, somebody whom I respect a lot, and somebody whose work I have followed for so many years. So I went, okay? Now,
so which of the two forces would you reckon with?
Which one?
The mainstream or the breakaway?
Of FDC? To be honest, I have not had any input in the mainstream, the one of Najja Nkum. I have not gone there to see what is there. You see, I went here because people whom I respect and people whom I've known to be in opposition, foundational people in opposition politics, invited me. And I was honored to go there for that reason. These are foundational people. These are people who have been fighting in the opposition for so many years. So many years. And they are, you know, they have done what they could. So I was there for that reason. So now, the other side, not like, there are not that many people whom, to be honest, I would look and say, if this person invites me, there is no way I can say no. But they have not invited me. And who knows what would happen if they did. However,
how concerning are the current wrangles within the opposition?
They are to be expected because there is a ruling party that has access to all the money and so on that is trying to divide the opposition for the purpose of...
You think it is money at the heart of it or egos?
It is both. Without the money, there would be egos. But there is also the money. Then the money also produces a bit more of the ego. But the thing is, somebody said that there will be no opposition by 2021. And he's not known to speak idle statements. He knows when he says something, he intends to follow through with it. So now these people, there's money all over the place. And money can change so many things. It can even change homes. Somebody comes with money and somehow people have been happily married for so long, split. So money has the power to do so many things. So I know it was to be expected that split the opposition, okay? It's going to happen in every, and I mean every, serious opposition party. where money is going to be thrown at, the people in the party, and there will be somebody who will be baited by it and who is going to run with that and will cause destruction. That is a given, because there is one person who has the money to spend and who wants to install his son, and who has to make sure that every other force has been shaken and weakened.
Is 2026
to the point that
worth your investment?
It is. Changing this country.
For what?
Changing this country.
Do elections still yield anything?
Elections will yield something. You see, the problem is so many people are talking as if Museveni is going to be around forever. He's not. When I am planning so many things, I know that Uganda is a very young country with a median age of like 16 point something. Museveni is a man of 80 something. Even he doesn't know how old. So he cannot hold us ransom. I mean, we have time.
Okay, you're going in for a gamble. It's just a gamble for you.
Everywhere politics is a gamble. You gamble on people liking you and people voting for you. But my point is that what is not a gamble is that there is going to be change. That is not a gamble. There is definitely going to be change. Okay? Now the question is, what kind of change? Will it be the change that I want? Will it be the change that somebody else wants? But there is going to be change. And there is no doubt about that.
Well, Mr. Kabuleta, what a pleasure hosting you this morning and tapping into your insights and analysis on the things that are taking center stage in national politics. That's it from me. Have a lovely day and cheers.